Hey everyone, welcome back to the All Music Matters Net podcast. I'm your host, Brian. Today, welcome a special guest from up the north. Got Michael K. or Michael Kaitbenski. How you doing today, brother?
Good. How's it going?
Not too bad. I guess so. What's been new recently? I guess when we were talking, you're more of like doing covers and I guess going to coffee shops and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, so I mostly do, you know, restaurant gigs, bars, that sort of thing. I've only been playing around about 2 or 3 years now. I had some health issues that I had to take a break from, but relatively new to specifically playing out. Based compared to some of your guests for sure. Um, but been a performer of some kind for most of my life. So.
So I guess you're the ones always going in singing the wagon wheel. They want you doing more of the cover songs.
I try to keep it, you know, not the. I usually get good feedback on the variety of songs. It's not the same song. I try to avoid wagon wheel. Some of those are. I usually throw in one or two, country roads here or there, but I try to keep it mostly off the beaten path. Familiar artists, but off the beaten path.
That's cool. And I guess so which part of the states are you hailing from?
So I'm from Massachusetts.
Close to Boston, as they would say.
Not quite. I'm the. Where'd you say you're from again? I'm sorry.
I'm actually from the Pittsburgh area.
Oh, okay. So so you're probably vaguely familiar with Mass. I'm more towards Worcester, the center of the state. Um, but yeah, so we have a decent music scene. I'm more outside of Worcester mostly. I'm trying to work to get towards there. There's more of a music scene out there. It suffered a lot recently. There was a lot of with gentrification. Rent has gone up. It's one of the most. I saw a report per capita. It's like one of the most expensive cities in the country. Not like absolute, but like relative to the local income, it's gone stratospheric. I used to live in a cheap town, and even my little dinky town where I live has gotten wild. But yeah. So then there's been a lot of code updates where a lot of the classic music places they had some fire code issue where they didn't let places grandfather in sprinkler systems, so it caused a lot of people to shut down live music. So there's been a little bit of a lull, but there's still a decent scene out there.
I was going to ask about that, but that will tie in with COVID here in just a little bit here too. But I guess before we jump into that, Michael, welcome to our podcast right here. And the way it's going to work is just want to get to know you a little bit more, both as a musician, but also as the individual as well here too. So, you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. So start back at the beginning right here. We always need a beginning, middle, and end. So I guess start back at the beginning here too. So I guess who are you, and how did you become a musician?
I am Michael Michael Kaitbenski, and I grew up. My mother was always, and my parents were always involved in the church. I grew up pretty religious. We had a pretty prominent local choir. So we had pretty big, like Christmas events, a Christmas cantata or whatever. So, and I would sing sometimes as a kid in those events. My mother has always been a singer. She has an unbelievable, like beautiful, very folky voice. It's quite lovely, and she's always encouraged that in me, and I've always been kind of a goofball. So there was always a lot of singing in my house growing up, and she would kind of make a lot of songs. She would kind of change the words to songs when trying to get us to do stuff, that sort of thing. So there was always a lot of music in my house growing up, and her side of the family very boisterous and loud and performative, and so I did a lot of theater and performing arts and stuff growing up. But I always loved to sing. Like I always loved to sing. I was very much an old soul. I always have. I've always been like an old man in a young man's body. Huge influence would have been. I grew up on a lot of folk, but a lot of Christian music, but like a lot of Frank Sinatra, a lot of Dean Martin, a lot of vocal standard stuff. I really gravitated towards before I developed my voice more in my late 20s, early 30s. I stuck to kind of baritone sort of stuff, so that would just kind of lend itself. So a lot of belting, and it's kind of close to theater-ish, a lot of that vocal standard stuff. So I just kind of leaned into my strengths, and I, when I was a kid, I would mow in the lawn, and not famously, but my neighbors would see me. I had my headphones on, full blast, like singing Frank Sinatra as the top of my lungs as I'm mowing the front lawn, sort of stuff. So I was always singing. I always had a song on my heart as a kid, and I never really explored that. I've always been a very like conservative person as far as risk goes, and I got married young, and like it always seemed a really selfish endeavor to really kind of explore playing music. So I kind of dismissed it. I was like, that's a big dream. Like I don't know if I can, because what I picked my spots, I did shows and that sort of thing. Um, but it was really only in the past 3-4 years where this was, I want to say, maybe this is it was all post COVID. My entry into the music scene was all post COVID, and I used to do a lot of karaoke. I got divorced later on in life, and I had a lot more free time. So I was like, oh, let me go out and do stuff. I got married really young. I didn't really go to college, so I was kind of having my like sowing wild oats era a little bit. So I was out to karaoke a lot, like 3 nights a week, because I always loved to sing. So, but after a while, I started to get a little tired of that, and you know, a lot of my friends who I would do karaoke with started running karaoke elsewhere, and then eventually even having some pull in local establishments to book some stuff, like maybe gigs. So it was kind of a small circle of friends who would perform and travel around, and we kind of followed each other and supported each other. And as I got a little more attuned to the barrier for entry, the standard that it would take to be able to perform, I thought to myself, I could do this. Like I could do this a little better. And I think based on the quality of the product around here, this isn't Nashville. Like the standard for what's a good person to sing is a lot lower, admittedly. Like my competition here is not as high. So I was like, I have a good product, I have a good voice. The really thing I had to overcome was just I had never really learned that many songs at once. I was going from the most I had done was an open mic here or there. And to go from that to like 3 hours was a big undertaking. But once I kind of got my feet going and I got it moving, it just became a lot of fun. And I've been just kind of slowly adding stuff over the years. I've done a couple little smaller shows or opened for some other local. There was a local guy named Joel Krause who was signed. He kind of came back. I was kind of friends. I opened for him like once or twice. But it's just slowly making connections and just kind of seeing where it takes me. One of my friends I met doing karaoke was a great singer as well, and I had some health issues for a while. I was on a tear for about 2 years, and I joined a rock band as well for a while. I was in kind of a sort of classic rock cover band with a bunch of old fogies, and I was running ragged. I was doing a lot, and then I started to have some vocal issues where I couldn't sing. I didn't have any vocal endurance. My voice would go flat real bad. And to make a long story short, what I thought was acid reflux and what I treated as acid reflux for almost a year ended up being anxiety based. So what was happening was I was hyperfixating on the sensations in my neck and throat. And anytime I would feel anything, like a little bit of mucus dripping, basically I was freaking out and everything was tightening up. And the more it would tighten up, the further it enforced the idea something was wrong. And I just was basically having panic attacks all the time. So not great. But so it was a year of trial and error. I was never more depressed in my entire life because I couldn't sing. I couldn't talk. I went from being someone who was wildly social to a hermit, like reading books, which is fine, but just not what I want to be doing. And the idea of like, I may never be able to sing and perform again was very devastating. And then I just ended up, but the facts weren't quite adding up with a reflux diagnosis. So I was like, can we just like try some antidepressants a little bit? And I was like clockwork. It calmed everything down. Suddenly I was able to sing. And then once I realized that was what was going on, I was on them for maybe a year. And then once I realized that was going on, I didn't need them anymore because I didn't have that downward psychological cycle. So I do a duo as well with one of my friends who doesn't quite have the time or resources to be able to pound the turf to find his own gigs. But he's a lot of fun. And we have a really good kind of like tonality dynamic. So, and it always just makes it more fun doing that sort of stuff. So, yeah, it's kind of where I am now. Just I have a gig today. We have a charity gig. Some of that same crew of friends, they started a kind of little festival for it's advocates for foster kids for court-appointed advocates. So it's just a resource for them. They coordinate all the benefits and stuff. So it's fun. I have a lot of fun with it. I make a little side change, and the idea being my only goal is to be maybe get a show at some point somewhere, and like be someone that's respected and looked forward to when you see him on the docket at your favorite sort of place or bar. It's like, oh, that guy's pretty good. That's really all I'm looking for. Because if there's, I mean, you know how it is as a performer. If there's one person who's vibing with you in the crowd, it makes the whole thing worth it. There could be like no one else, but if one person's like really into it, you can just play for them, and it's to me it's worth it.
That's for sure. I guess, are you still doing stuff with choir every now and again, or are you just strictly just doing this whole music thing on your own?
No, I haven't been involved. After my separation from my ex-wife, my divorce, I had kind of left religion behind. But the choir had kind of dissipated quite a bit once I was like mid-teens or so. But I still will do like Christmas events and stuff. Like we have I don't know if you saw it in one of the clips on my thing. There's a big church where I'm doing a song, and they have like a annual festival of giving trees thing where we do some Christmas concerts and stuff. I'm not like averse to the church by any means, but it's just not something that I get involved in as much these days. So
Actually, the reason I brought it up was I'm still Catholic, but one of the things that we do is what we call bell choirs, where they have like the bells up there too. So
yes.
Where it was Christmas or Ash Wednesday, that was recent. That was
yes.
one of the ones that they would do. I guess, did your church do something similar?
I was Protestant, so I didn't go to Catholic church. My mother grew up Catholic, but we had less ceremony, more contemporary. I was pretty strictly religious early on. Things kind of softened a bit. But no, I did go to Catholic school though. So I was familiar with a lot of this. I have not seen the bell ceremony before. For whatever reason, the places I was at, like when I had to go, they didn't have it. But I always loved like when they shake the incense and stuff. I have a lot of respect for the Catholic Church in what's the word I'm looking for? Just the sort of respect for not just tradition. I can't find the right word, but like the Protestant church at times is a little too casual. You know what I mean? Like I enjoy it, but I do like, there's a certain sense that I enjoy the bit of the grandiose sort of reverence where I'm looking for that is kind of baked in with a lot of those ceremonies that are the same across everywhere else, which I kind of like. I haven't seen
casual Sundays. So how about that?
Yeah.
So, all right, that's cool. So you say you just started doing the music just a couple years ago, and I guess it was more so after COVID?
Yeah, I basically had time to pursue it before I was, married and with a kid, and I had my other things, and I didn't really see the time or space and I had limited time that I wanted to spend with my family. So it was like, this is too selfish of a venture for me to really get into. So it was just something I kind of didn't think about. But then because of exposure, having a little more time, and then seeing kind of, the bar for entry I have a pretty high standard for myself, and the bar for entry isn't quite as high as I thought it would be. And if some of these people are getting reasonably paid to perform, I can certainly do this and make a crack at it and have some fun. So,
have you collaborated with anybody else? I guess in your little music project, Michael K Music, or is it just strictly you?
Mostly it's just me. Like I said, I do have another. We call ourselves FM Radio. My buddy's name's Franklin. I thought it's a very clever name, and then I realized, as far as search optimization, it's horrific because FM radio is everywhere. So then I have to add like it's FM Radio acoustic duo, which it's fine. But my cousin, his name's he goes by Gigi Santella. He has some original music, which I love. He's does all sorts of stuff. He's quite a character, but he just loves music, and he has some really interesting stuff. I've helped him small stuff here or there, and he's helped me record some small stuff. We're trying to get that out at some point, but and like I said, I was in a band for a little while, but that was more cover stuff. But I always like to collaborate when I can. Like a couple of friends, I have friends that are bands, and like There's been opportunities to potentially like do some guest singing and like in a collaboration for like a charity event or something, but it ended up falling through. But it's something I love to do when I get the chance. It always makes it. That's what I mean. Open mics are one of my favorite things to do, as far as kind of just figuring out your community. Anyone who's trying to get into the music scene, that's my number one thing: is find your local open mics, find the people who host them, and you're going to find people that are excited for you. Like you're going to find people who are going to encourage you, and before you know it, it's a relatively small circle for the most part, and you'll run into common faces, and then before you know it, you'll kind of it won't seem so foreign and like imposing. So
maybe more so intimidating than imposing, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
So I guess I know when we were talking, I know you were saying like you don't have a whole lot of original material, but I guess just talk about the original material in this case. So I guess is it just strictly acoustic, or have you done like some other sort of genre related sort of music?
It's strictly acoustic at the moment, mostly just because I haven't taken it beyond that, as far as feeling I have enough stuff to try to bring it to the next level. I've played with things here or there, but mostly it's just acoustic. I would say that if I'm going to fall on what my strength would be, what my voice, I like to do a lot of styles. It's a double-edged sword. I like to do like vocal sort of impressions and try to match stuff a lot, so that's helped me expand my voice a lot. But sometimes you kind of lose yourself in the sauce, where it's like, what does my voice actually sound like? So my natural voice is a lot like my mother's, where its biggest strength is it has I can do a very nice sort of folky, tender quality, and I really love kind of ballads, like a lot of James Taylor sort of things. That's what I lean towards. It's kind of hopeless romantic sort of silliness, a lot of nostalgia. Yeah, it's a little more just kind of classic singer-songwriter sort of stuff, That's probably my strength and my disposition when it comes to writing. But I like to try on a lot of different hats, so I try not to box myself into one thing. But it's an insecurity that I have, admittedly, as a performer. I don't have much original music, but at least I have a couple that I have. So I'll pull those out, and it helps me with my imposter syndrome. But it's something I'd like to work towards as I go forward. But I try not to force it either. So
yeah, fair enough. I guess just real quick, in terms of your vocals, I guess is there a certain technique you do like nowadays? Because it seemed like after you took those antidepressants, so that you weren't, in this case, like freaking out, and like your vocal cords are like tightened up and everything too. I guess do you do some sort of vocal techniques these days to keep your voice relaxed?
Basically, once I got out of the anxious death spiral of negative thoughts, once I broke that cycle, it wasn't too hard to keep it at. Like I've become so much aware of the signs when things are tightening up. It's very easy to get out of it. Since I started performing, gigging out, basically after a year of that and joining the band, I made the biggest vocal improvements I ever had, because I was really focusing on technique. I'm all self-taught. Like I've never had formal lessons other than maybe an intro here or there. But someone I always recommend for, especially I know you're a drummer and stuff, people doing rock vocals of any kind, not just kind of standard pop stuff. There's a YouTube guy named Chris Lipe, who, for whatever reason, his teaching style really resonated with me a lot. And I was able to really suddenly become aware of all the different resonances in the face and how that was a game changer for me. Once I kind of figured out, we all know the voice is an instrument, but because it's inside us, people have like a weird reverence to the voice. It seems magical because like we're making this weird sound, and everyone attributes it to talent and skill. And there's always an element of that. The best of the best in anything are going to be skilled and have some sort of genetic predisposition. But it's just a muscle, and the more you do it, the more you figure out technique. It's just learning a dance. Your vocal cords are just kind of dancing, and once you learn the steps and the right pressure and where to place things, it was a game changer for me. I was able to sing songs that I never thought I'd be able to sing in my youth. And I'm also in my 30s now, which is where the voice kind of peaks, as far as your maximum range. So it's a lot of vocal warm-ups and stuff, and just kind of keeping tabs. There's no specific technique really to keep things chill. More just positive talk, and like I can do one or two little exercises typically, and it'll calm myself. So.
I'm not sure if you ever tried like to do like Chino, like what he does from Deftones or that sort of stuff, or even like the Rob Halford where they try to hit like those acapellas at times. So, have you tried?
Well,
Like
I'm not familiar. I'm not familiar with what you're referencing. Is it like a specific sort of vocal warm up or something like that?
actually, it was just in general, like how they do like their vocal style of music, for instance. So,
Gotcha.
but like it like hits like certain pitches, and it's like, boy, that must really be a strain on the voice or something like that. So,
Well, it is funny. Like a lot of it is because of the microphone. Because we can sing amplified. There's a lot of the tricks you can do to make a lot of it is making your voice, especially in the higher registers, making it sound a little more supported than it really is. And so much of that is the smoothness of those transitions, and it gives the illusion that it's one full chest voice when really you're slipping into that falsetto, but you're just very smoothly doing it. I've been able to hit some really impressive notes at some points, and it's taken me by surprise. But often it's not too much of a strain. Like the upper limits for sure. It's hard, but it's really amazing what you can do with good vocal technique, and you still got to learn the steps, of course. Even if it's good technique, if you're doing it for the first time, like a toddler waddling around, like you're unstable, so you can hurt yourself if you're breaking new ground. But if you kind of just slowly grease the groove a little bit, it's surprising how you can reproduce what sound like really challenging things with relative ease. The high notes aren't really that hard. If it's in your range, the high notes aren't really too hard. What's really hard is a lot of the stuff that is unique to you as a singer, where stuff is falling in between your different registers. So like it could sound like a pretty simple line, but if it's bridging, if it's going back and forth between like your chest voice and kind of a head voice, it gets sneaky hard because you have to balance that pressure really well. But yeah.
always learn something new with these interviews, so that's pretty cool. I was gonna say also, I guess we hit some of those vocal pitches, it's almost like thank God for adrenaline too. So
Yeah. I mean, it is especially when you're trying to project, and especially rock vocals. That was always very taxing for me, and like a lot of it is sustained, and it's not just the tone, it's the volume, and then layering grit on top of it is a whole different technique as well. You can have something that's like a really high shrill note, but if you layer that grit on top of it, now it sounds and feels more full and doesn't seem so like airy. But it can be a whole body exercise when you're really trying to, I always think of kind of like Linkin Park, sort of sometimes some of their classic, start off screams or that sort of stuff. I don't really get much into that sort of stuff, but I can do a teensy bit of it here or there, but I tend to save that for karaoke these days. Because it's too much for most of what I'm doing, but I'll do it sometimes. I throw some grit on there, here and there. The rock and roll sort of vocals are fun, and people like them. And everyone always says I look kind of like a Kmart Chris Daughtry, so I I try to throw that in there sometimes, throw in some old American Idol songs, but yeah.
actually, it didn't. Actually, seeing you mention, I'm like, oh God, I can see it now. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess if you tried.
His face is a little taller than mine. It's a little more oval, but I mean, it's a bald-headed dude. That's bald-headed guys. It can be a generic look. So,
Have you tried doing some covers of Chris Daughtry yet, or no?
yeah, I've done a couple. He has a really impressive voice. It's going back and like really dialing it in and trying to get close to the original key. There's some of them I just can't do, and I have to approach it a different way, but I can get pretty close. He's got a little bit naturally higher of a register than I do, but yeah, I try to do him justice here or there. I always get a good chuckle out of it. But yeah, I've done a few. He's really good though. When you dialing into the nitty gritty of vocals, it's always interesting to break down and figure out what people are doing technique wise to approach, whether it's vowel modification or placement or just stuff like that. It's always interesting to kind of figure stuff out and see how people approach things differently.
Actually, I know you mentioned like your bark too. Is that pretty much a trip when you went doing something on the dark side whenever you do some karaoke, like doing like One Step Closer, for instance?
Let's see. What do I do at karaoke? That's kind of silly. I'll do like System of a Down, stuff like that. Trying to think, or there's always like Nickelback or some which Nickelback surprisingly actually really difficult to sing. I know it's very produced vocals, but it's actually really hard to sing. He's up there. It doesn't seem like it because there's so much like gravel going on, and I'm not sure how much like layering of doubling and chorus is on there, but it's up there and it's not quite as hard as like Buck Cherry. Buck Cherry is he can't I don't know if he has a voice anymore because his I don't know what the hell he did, but his vocals they're so it's like sandpaper and it sounds so cool, but it's so hard to sustain. It's just up there and it stays up there, and it's challenging. And then of course karaoke setups are always horrific as far as hearing yourself. It's loud and the gain's not up enough, and I only have very 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 limited exposure to mixing my own gigs and stuff. I have a little like Bose T1 that I mix stuff with for my live shows. But it's true what they say. The second you start mixing your own sound, it ruins music for you in some ways because like you just hear everything. And it's like, oh, I never cared about I never noticed like the difference, the gain on the microphone when I was at karaoke before. I just yelled my fucking face off. Oh, sorry, excuse me. Just yelled my face off. Um, once you hear the difference, like, oh, this system has no mids, or where's the low end, or this is so boomy, or I just never noticed those things before, and now I hear it all the time, and it's rather irritating. But
I was like, hey, language, man. So
yeah, sorry about that.
No, you're good. You're good. Just don't go too crazy. That's all I'm gonna say. So
yeah no, I grew up in the church. I
should know better. So yeah,
I should. I know.
Have to go to confession later. So yeah. All right. Actually, which songs from System of a Down were you doing? Were you doing Toxicity or Aerials?
Chop Suey, of course.
Did you actually do Chop Suey? Oh man,
absolutely. See, one of my favorite things to do. I am a showman at the end of the day. Like I think of myself much more as a performer than a musician because I'm all about more just in the moment, and I don't have a lot of my own original content. But even when it comes to karaoke, I'm trying to put on a bit of a show as far as not only the song itself, but the collection of songs I'm choosing. I'm trying to give people a little bit of whiplash and not really know what to come next. I've sung everything. I've gone from Frank Sinatra to Chop Suey to Eminem to like just all over the place. Just keep things interesting. But I like doing stuff like that as it's a challenge vocally. To, like I said before, figuring out what they're doing and can I replicate it, and then how can I integrate that into my own voice later. So, and that's one of the things that I learned a lot from watching a lot of Chris Leepe's videos. Is he does that a lot. It's a lot of vocal breakdowns, and I kind of got that bug afterwards of like, ooh, this is a really interesting song. I have no desire to like sing it like this, but you can learn a technique and then turn that down just a little bit in a way that you can integrate it. Like I think in Chop Suey specifically, there's a couple really interesting notes where I had to place them in a unique way, and I've been able to integrate them, later in other things. It just kind of opens up new avenues to approach things vocally. So it's always fun. It's fun to create and discover that way.
It's a picture you're trying to sing "Sugar" because that was one of their hit songs that. From their self-titled album way back in the day.
Oh, Sugar? Yeah, that's a weird one, right?
It is, but it's a fun one there too.
Aerials is really good. Toxicity, I love Toxicity is awesome. I think that's an underrated song of theirs. Like I'm always really impressed with like the different harmonies and like the uniqueness of Serge, right? His voice is just like his tonality is just so unique. His delivery is unusual. I love the oscillation between like really gritty and very sweet. Disturbed does that well too. The lead singer there, he does that. He does that very well. I'm not a huge Disturbed guy, but like I can appreciate what he's doing for sure.
Yeah, actually, I would say like Surge is more like a modern day Freddie Mercury. Whenever you think about it, so
I don't know. I don't know if I go that far. I mean, like, but I can see where you would make that. I think I don't quite agree with it, but I can see where you're coming from for sure, for sure. Yeah, he's very. I'd say he's a very underrated singer for sure. And one thing I will say, just as an aside in that vein, is I never take myself too seriously. No matter how good you get, there's always a bigger fish. But more so than anything, I think vocally, there's there's so many good singers out there. It is really unbelievable. And you know, a couple of guys, I still do karaoke regularly, and it always stuns me the amount of people that can come up and just absolutely blow you away. And they just work a desk job and they have no desire to pursue anything. And I get it because it's a hustle. It's a real pain in the rear to get all the stuff, to have enough songs to play and whatever. But it is, as a singer, I love doing it. I think singers are overrated in the sense of we're a dime a dozen, man. Like I love what we do. I love doing it, and I love getting accolades for it. I like the attention, admittedly, but it's special, but it's not as special as we like to think it is. And I always try to keep that in the back of my mind to not puff up the ego. There's always a bigger fish, and it always amazes me how many people will come out of the woodwork and be incredible singers.
just I'd be like, "Where have you been all my life?" That's our deal. So
yeah,
that's our situation. So I know we mentioned about a couple of singers, but I guess people like David Draymond, like from Disturbed and even Surge, I guess, do you just listen to your music just to maybe get an influence from them, or do you just mainly stick to like more of the folk that you mentioned earlier?
Oh, I listen to everything and anything and everything. Like it's the whole gamut. From I there's definitely look back like in different phases of life where I tend to kind of, certainly on the ADHD kind of spectrum, where I fixate on certain people for a little while, and then I kind of, you know, something that I like to say sometimes is the only way to really you can time travel through music, because it can bring you back to a certain point when you first heard the song, or when you were really like the Bare Naked Ladies. I love the Bare Naked Ladies so much. I probably have 15 to 20 songs that I will play. People know maybe 3 or 4, but I just love them so much. There was a time where I was just listening to them all the time. I like The Offspring. I like Green Day. I like Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin. I like Ella Fitzgerald. Like I like all sorts of stuff. So it's just kind of more a ping pong ball of bouncing around and just appreciating what different people are doing over time, for sure, rather than maybe, I think it's the other way around. Like I bounce around. I'm like, oh, that's cool. Oh, maybe I should explore that, as opposed to seeking out people to explore, to challenge vocally, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. I can see what you mean there too. And it seems like you kind of jumped on the whole music scene here a little bit later after the COVID deal, but I guess for COVID, I guess how bad was it just for you personally and then family wise?
I mean, I was always kind of guilty. Because I had it pretty good. I mean, for that was just how the cards fell for me. I mean, now the long term cost of that, economy wise, not great. But like in the moment, I got to spend my job was great. I've been at the same place for over 13 years, and they were super accommodating. They laid me off temporarily so I could take advantage of some of the supplementation from some of the COVID regulations. And then they were able to help me. They let me work off site, kind of to keep, because I work out of their house. It's a small operation. And I got to spend tons of time with my daughter, who was only 2 or 3 at the time. So my wife was a nurse, so she had to work. But I got to spend most of my time with my 2, 3-year-old, 4-year-old daughter. And that was really cool for me. I really got to spend a lot of time with family, and something that in America, at least, you're not really able to do when your kids are little. Everyone's got to work. My job was good when my daughter was born. I still got an extra couple weeks, but this day and age, not being able to spend 9 months a year with your kid and just going on the swings and swinging for hours and going on walks, and it was okay for me. I've always felt guilty because it was so bad for so many people. It caused so much chaos, but for whatever reason, I happened to get a good deal of the cards. So
It's going to be the ace of spades or something like that if we wanted to throw a little motorhead in. So
yeah, absolutely. You got you don't get to choose your cards. You can only play them. So that was a good hand. I've had some other bad hands over the years, but that worked out for me.
Metaphorically speaking, but yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. I guess were you and your family okay? Did you guys get real sick with COVID?
Really, oddly enough, I didn't have any family members pass because of COVID. My grandmother had other issues where she passed kind of during that period, but it wasn't really related to COVID. I didn't really lose anyone due to COVID during that time. We were all surprisingly healthy, considering my wife was working in a facility where she was exposed to it on a regular basis. But no, it was pretty uneventful.
That's good to hear. All right.
Yeah.
Plus, it's you and your family as well there too.
Yeah.
So
appreciate it.
So I think earlier you were talking about how the music scene has been in around your neck of the woods, but I don't know if you've been to Boston or do any other shows, or let alone go into any shows, concerts for that matter. I guess, how's the music scene been from your perspective?
It's unfortunately, I think the story is what you're seeing in the rest of the economy, which is centralization of things. It's less smaller places. Those places close down, and there's fewer venues at higher prices and higher premiums. There's less venues, and there's less hole in the wall places, and it's just hard. It's hard to make music make sense for a lot of people. As far as I empathize with the people that own the clubs too. It's like they have to make ends meet as well. But as costs continue to go up, it's been hard for a lot of those places to stay open. I will say we do have quite a lot of, as far as like the solo musician around here, considering like the population density not being crazy, there's quite a few people that can make a decent wage playing around. I'm always surprised. People from other parts of the country are usually pretty surprised that a place I'm a little off the beaten path. Worcester's not a massive city, but we have a lot of breweries up here. We're definitely, we got the Treehouse and a couple other really high-end places, but there's plenty of places around. It's a surprising amount of places that will have live music, and that continue to support it. So, as far as a solo person, there's actually a decent amount of opportunity, and there's not a massive supply of people either. This isn't Nashville. This isn't like a mecca for making it in music. So, some of the cream of the crop probably go somewhere else, and the people that don't want to make it a lifelong dream, they play more locally and stuff. But there's a decent amount of places there's always people looking to book, and they're always looking for people that are good. So.
So when in doubt, we can turn our house into a brewery. Whenever you think about it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think you may have missed the bubble there if you're gonna go there. It's definitely come down. We've seen a lot close. There was a time where like it didn't matter what the beer was. It could be absolute nonsense, and they were like, "Well, it's a brewery. We're gonna go." Like that. The trimming of the fat has definitely started to happen. On top of everyone having less money, but we still have quite a few good ones, which is nice. But the kind of the not so great ones where they were just like, we're a place and there's beer, have kind of fallen off. But yeah, that was a weird time. I got into craft beer as it was kind of coming up, and then my wallet kept shrinking and my stomach kept expanding, so I went kind of down to like whiskey, and then I was like, this isn't great either. So I don't drink that much, but it was cool. It was weird seeing it go from this bit of a niche thing to now every place has tons of different craft beer. But what's your scene like out there? As far as you're a drummer, so are you in a band currently? Like, do you like studio work, that sort of thing, or?
I call it a studio band, but it's more just strictly home studio. And
Okay.
I do my own little project, which we have released all streaming platforms. I don't know if you released your music, but you can get to that in a second. But uh, I'm trying to at least get 3 studio projects so I can just mess around and see where it goes, so to speak. So I only got 1 rolling at the moment, but fingers crossed we'll get the other 2 started this year. But we'll see
Yeah.
what happens. Other than that, I have contributed my drums to other projects. I actually got one. Another friend of mine is actually working out there too, so I'm actually curious to see where all of it goes. So I should say some session work to say the least.
Nice.
I was doing my own little death growls, which I mess around, but I think if I was doing it long term, like touring that sort of deal, I think I'd probably ruin my voice. So I think it's best just to keep it strictly to the studio.
Yeah, I mean, there is there is a very specific technique if you're good if you are like I don't do it, but like I know those who do, and there's people that do teach how to do it. Like I think there's a way that's more sustainable, but long term it's still I think probably horrible for your voice. But there's a way to support it where it's not just so breathy. But yeah, if you want to do that a lot, you definitely have to take some time to learn the appropriate way to do it. Because it's not my thing, but also it's still really cool. Like I very much appreciate how difficult and like interesting it is that as humans we can make another weird noise.
Was there ever a point in your life where you kind of went more into the dark side, going to the death metal, that sort of stuff?
I one my best friend. I always thought he was very cool. Like we've been friends since we were like 5 or 6, and he's still my best friend. But I always would like pick up on like I would always like follow kind of whatever he was listening to music wise because I thought he was so cool. And he had like a Demon Hunter, As I Lay Dying sort of phase, and that was about as far as I really got into it. I still like some of the songs because it has nostalgia and they're fun. I can only just tolerate it so much. But I definitely leaned into some harder stuff for a little while. It's fun. Like and I grew up very Christian, so I only had limited access to what I could listen to. So I like some of it was like Skillet and like 1,000 Foot Crutch and that sort of stuff. I remember Skillet. I don't really like. I never really like, even as a Christian, when I was really in the church. I really did not like most of their stuff past like mid 2000s. Thought it got a little too. I don't know. I didn't really like it, but their early stuff, kind of, which was very much kind of a like a what's the word I'm looking for? Like their I think Alien Youth maybe was still very much like Nine Inch Nails sort of industrial, grungy, messy sort of sound. I just really enjoyed it. It was just interesting. I still like a little bit of Nine Inch Nails here or there, but it's yeah. I certainly have an appreciation for the heavier stuff. The first band I was ever in as a kid, me and my friends from youth group, our drummer was always wanted to do we like most bands as a kid, they never work because you all have way too weird musical preferences. So like our drummer wanted to do screamo, our lead guitarist just wanted to do like pentatonic blues, and I didn't have that much of a voice at the time. I had some range, but not a whole lot. But there's always a conflict.
Do tell. So I can see why. Let's say it's one of your guilty pleasures, we should say. So
Yeah, I never have guilt in my pleasures.
all right, fair enough. Right. But nonetheless, good to see music scene. Hopefully be on the up end of here too. Maybe at some point be a Mecca, but I think it's a start. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, chipping away.
Slowly but surely. All right. So going into the gear next, I guess what brand is your guitar, and I guess what other gear do you have for music production? I guess anything you use for your so-called gigs or little night out, if we want to call it that.
Yeah, so I have a little bit of gear. I try to keep it simple because it's either just me or just a second set of vocals. I have the only guitar of note that I have a Taylor 410 Okango that I really like. I got it from someone else who used to tour. It was from like a '93. So I had a nice little patina to it. It was a really good deal, and she wanted it to go to another musician. And I really like it. It has great tone, has great action. It's a beautiful guitar. I'm getting rid of another guitar that I have. Like I have like an older Epiphone master built acoustic, and my very first guitar, which I keep around, which is like an Ibanez something or other. It doesn't really matter. It was my first guitar, and it's fine. It's very easy to play, and it has a slimmer neck, but like has a little bit of a kind of a darker tone. But I really like my main guitar. I really only need one or two, so that's my main guitar to gig. And then I have a couple little PAs. I have like an S1, a Bose S1 Pro. I have the big Bose system, the L1 Pro 32 for when I do like kind of outdoor like town common sort of gigs, that sort of stuff. That covers most of my bases. Then I have an Everse 8, which I really like. Talking on that sort of mixing thing, once I actually got a mixer, I realized why people complain about Bose. The just once I got the Everse and was able to really tune the full range of my voice and hear everything, going back to the S1 is like, oh, it's so empty. Like it doesn't have, there's just this extra layer of humanity that's missing in it. It sounds fine. And then I only really use one foot pedal. I use it sometimes. Not. It's a TC Helicon plate acoustic, and it's a great piece of gear. If you're a solo person and you don't want to deal with trying to do, some people go crazy, and more power to them, but I don't have the time to really get into the nitty gritty with MIDI and trying to create all this layering. But what it'll do is you plug your guitar and your voice into it, and it acts as a great preamp for your mic and for your guitar. And there's tons of different reverbs and everything like that, which is great. It does some good for guitars that have the piezo pickup. It does a good job at kind of bringing a little more life back into it. And it does lots of different harmonies and different styles and effects. And since your guitar is plugged in, as you're playing, the harmonies will follow the chords you're playing. So it gives a nice illusion of it adds a little more dynamicness to your performance without a whole lot of extra work, which is nice. So there's a lot of different, you can do highs and lows, you can do doubling, chorus. So that, as far as like adding a single piece of gear, that was a huge boon. And it's been pretty reliable overall and keeps it pretty simple. I have a looper that I probably will get rid of. I tried to start using it, but I couldn't get into it. I would like to at some point, because I think it's a great tool. But my main worry as a performer is once you do looping in your set, now you've created another metric to measure what you're also doing against. And now by comparison, all your other songs are probably going to seem pretty hollow if you're not using it for every song. So that's what I don't want to get into. I don't have enough time to spend on practice and playing to really get to be a virtuoso using that. So maybe over time, and it has drums for playing around and stuff. But I have like a USB adapter sort of thing for some recording into my computer. I use it more for troubleshooting songs. So something that I have to do on a regular basis is tune my ear to make sure that I'm on pitch. Sometimes your brain starts filtering, you thinking you're on pitch, then you hear yourself record, and you're like, I'm about like a half step off everything. Where is this? So it's good for me periodically to record and make sure, and then kind of play the song back to the recording and make sure I'm kind of right in the range. If I sing too much in the car with the volume up too loud, I notice that happens a lot. So it's something that as I played a lot more, I tried not to practice in the car too many songs, because your brain hears the correct melody, you're singing what could be a little off, and your brain's like, oh, we're good, that's good, you're doing it right, and then you kind of groove that wrong. But yeah, not a whole lot. I have like a little T1 mixer too for certain things, but it's pretty minimal. So try to get in and get out quickly.
That's for sure. I guess what does it normally take when it comes to like applying? You have to do some sort of application if you wanted to get to doing gigs at say a restaurant or something?
Unfortunately, it's mostly an email game, and it's a lot of no responses and things. What I've found, networking is always huge, of course. What I've found works the best, and what I would give advice for anyone trying to get out there, like I said before, open mics, great. But also, an unfortunate part of it is you have to market yourself, and you have to have something for people to look at. People that are looking at that, they don't have a lot of time. They're running around. Don't send a 5-minute video of you playing. Like I have couple videos uploaded, but mostly it's short. So anything less than 60 seconds. So you can go here, here, here. You're in and out in 3 minutes. This is what I do. This is this type of stuff that I can play, and preferably in 3 different locations. So even if that's 3 open mics, it's 3 open mics. But I've been trying to get better at just accumulating content, which I hate to do, but you have to have it for marketing purposes and having some of a presence. But it's mostly just emails and word of mouth, and like finding people to, oh, you work here, you work there. I've had a couple things where it was like, oh, I own this place locally. You're friends with so and so, cool. You want a gig there? I've had a couple of those, but not a lot. But the more you play around, the more you'll run into it. But the first few are definitely hard, which is why I recommend doing the open mic, so you can get some footage of you playing. And they're not going to do research to see if you were at an open mic doing it. All they see is, oh, he's playing on a stage here and he's playing on a stage there. He must be able to play at least a couple different places. So having a bit of a fake till you make it kind of energy definitely helps you early on, because they're not really looking into it too far. But it's just trial and error. And once you get your first place or two, it's not so scary. So
That's for sure. But I guess sticking with that, I guess, is that normally a challenge you normally always face? Or I guess what other challenges do you face these days? Trying to be your own solo musician in this case.
yeah, I mean, that's the main thing, is breaking into a new area is tough. I'm pretty kind of established as far as my little locality around here, but I'm trying to get into Worcester. But I don't spend a ton of time there. So it's, the nearest biggest city. It's about 20 minutes away from where I live, or maybe 30 minutes. But you got to spend time there to make some connections, because people don't really respond very much. So it's just knocking down doors and sending emails and finding out the places that even have live music. So you got to research what places are there. Yeah, that's definitely a challenge. And then also just staying interested. You're playing the same songs a lot. I'm always trying to add. I'm not I'm not a great guitarist. I learned guitar to accompany myself. I do some finger picking, like some James Taylor stuff, and I have a decent rhythm. I can do plenty of bar chords and things like that. But by no means am I a virtuoso on guitar. So that does make it easier to add songs. They're pretty simplistic arrangements for the most part. But 80 to 90% of the time, people aren't paying attention to you anyway. So I don't worry about that too much. It's a plus and a minus. People aren't paying attention, but people aren't paying attention. But it's still fun. Like I said earlier, if there's one person who's like nodding their head, that can make your whole night. If it's more of a restaurant, a bar, you tend to get a little more like feedback. But yeah, it's just making connections and not giving up, and just keep plugging away and honing your craft if you need improvement.
Yeah, that's for sure. All right. And it's just real quick in terms of like some of the original material you had, I guess. How did you go about like trying to create the song? Did you have like lyrics written and then you did like the guitar melody and everything else afterwards?
Mm-hmm. I've done both. There's I don't know which ones you picked up. There's like 3 songs. I think Mere Mortal is up there, Out of Bed, and then there's another one. But
I think it was a Curse song or something. I think it was like Curse of the. Let me see.
That's an Orville Peck song.
Was it? Oh yeah.
Yeah. But Mere Mortal, the kind of more upbeat one, if you happen to see that one, that was more of I found a chord progression I liked, and I kind of had a certain energy to it, just kind of fiddling around, and then from there I kind of wrote the song from the chord progression based on how it felt. Other songs I've written the lyrics first and then done the other way around, trying to figure it out, had a melody in mind. I kind of go through blast and cruise phases when it comes to that, where I'm kind of locked in and like writing a lot or recording melodies and stuff, but it's something I've gotten out of practice. I wear a lot of hats. I do gigging, but I also work full time at my other job, and I also run a dog poop scooping company. So I'm doing that on the weekends, and I have my daughter half the time, so it's making time for that. And at some point, something has to give. So I don't have a ton of time for songwriting. So, but when my life is a little slower, I probably will do it a little more when I'm not quite as running around doing stuff. But
Like, what made you want to do a dog poop scooping contest or a business, actually, I guess.
I mean, it really just came down to a simple calculation of what's something that I can do on the side, what's something that I can do kind of on my way to work, what's something that's extremely flexible and a little bit different than my day job. Because I had a lot of constraints as far as what I could really reasonably manage with having a kid and like having a normal 9 to 5, but I do have a lot of flexibility there. So the money's very good, and it gets me outside. I get to pet some dogs, and I don't take anything away from any customer places. It's just I put it in their local, in their particular trash can and stuff. So keeps me busy, keeps me outside, and it's turned into a nice little side business. But it all takes time. But I just was looking at side gigs, and that was one of the few things that the overhead cost is $0 basically. I have a bucket, and you got to get some high quality trash bags. But as long as you have a trunk to put stuff in, you're pretty much good to go, man. So.
It was like, how long did it take before you had to get used to the stench?
I've always had a really terrible sense of smell, so that was also another bonus where it's never really. I hated doing it as a kid, but I charge a decent amount now, so I'm getting paid. I'll do it. I have my headphones in and listen to podcasts, or like I said with the lawn, I'm singing in the backyard. One of the customers has affectionately calls me the singing poop man. So I'm just in the yard scooping and belting, and just getting some vocal practice in while I'm making a couple extra bucks. So sometimes I'll bring my daughter with me because I have to. For whatever reason, I'll have her follow behind me, and like make sure I don't miss anything, and I'll pay her a little bit. So it's it was just a question of like what's something that I can do feasibly, and I need to make a little extra money. So it just worked out. I don't mind it. I always get to chuckle out of people, but works for me. And plus I get winters off, which is nice. So it's a lot over the course of the year, but yeah, it's a fun little gig.
It's a seasonal job in this case. So yeah.
Yeah, because of Massachusetts. But sometimes with the weather, sometimes it's extended quite a bit. It's only a month shutdown. But this year we had a proper winter this year in Mass, where we got some snow and it was really cold, and it was a nice break.
Yeah. Actually, not to backtrack, but I guess when you were mowing the lawn, did you try doing Michael Jackson's little moonwalk at times?
I did not. I was in my Frank Sinatra era at the time, so it was a lot of like New York, New York, or My Way, belting at the top of my lungs to hear myself over the lawnmower and the headphones blaring over my ear. So not a whole lot of that.
Picture doing like some of the Michael Jackson sort of yells, "Ow!" that sort of deal, or anything like that.
Yeah, I wouldn't put it past me. I certainly would do that. Yeah, that would track with me as a child and as an adult. So
I'm just picturing one of your neighbors being like, "That boy ain't right," that sort of deal.
So, I'm sure that is exactly the thought. He's a nice boy, but there's something a little off. They'd be right, but
you're right. But I'm having fun, so
yeah, exactly. I've always been a kind of march to the beat of my own drum kind of guy. So,
all right. And just last thing, just for some of the songs you have written, I guess, what do your lyrics normally like to delve into? Do you try to get a little storytelling or poetic?
It's definitely more storytelling. I'm very much like that sort of James Taylor folky influence is definitely strongly there. I wrote a lot of crappy poetry as a kid. Like I like the story arc sort of thing, or it's heavy nostalgia. The song I do have, Out of Bed, I very much enjoy. It's just kind of about, it has specific references to my childhood and just as you grow, looking at things in your child with a different light, with the perspective as an adult and stuff, and just kind of the shifting perspectives and the comparisons, the juxtaposition of those things. Yeah, I'm a very emotional guy, so it's a lot of emotion and nostalgia and that sort of thing. But yeah, certainly more of a storyteller sort of thing. I lean into that. Yeah.
I know they mentioned about like in storytelling about an unreliable narrator, because maybe the narrator is probably insane or that sort of deal. I don't know if they ever tried that in the music scene, because I guess it would be a little harder too, because you kind of describe in the story that it's like, oh wait, I'm actually insane. So yeah.
Yeah, that might be that reminds me of like in English class when they would try to talk about like second person, which is just like a very strange. It's either mostly writing is either first or third person, but like occasionally there's second person, which is weird. But I don't know. I don't want to get too off the beaten trail.
That it's like you and then them. That's our deal too. Then it's like,
Hmm.
oh God, we went woke, or that's what they wanted to say.
Yeah, yeah,
Starts like second person or whatever. But
yeah,
I don't know. I don't get it either, but it's just funny shit at times. So,
yeah.
okay. Now, Micah, just real quick, just from you being the type of musician that you are in your case, I
Yeah.
guess for someone who wanted to try something similar, I guess what sort of advice would you give to those people?
Um, like retreading what I had said before, kind of is number one is go to open mics. You will meet, you will, and go to a lot of different ones. Some of them there's gonna be really well established ones that just have incredible people playing, but right after them, right before them, or right after them are gonna be people that they've been playing for a while, and they're still trying, like, and there's also gonna be people that are just like you that have never tried it before, and everyone was there at some point, and it's going to be the most forgiving and supportive environment you're going to find. You'll be inspired to new heights, and you'll be maybe encouraged that you're a little better than you thought you were. So, and then really, in my experience, the music scene is like a lot of things. It's just all about connections and finding people that you vibe with and hang out with, and you'll probably meet some cool people. A lot of people have had bands from people that they have, like one of the ones I went to recently. Um, there was a guy who I met, and he was a harmonica player, and he was just kind of looking to jam. So I had him come up, and we did like Steamroller, James Taylor's sort of variation on Steamroller Blues, and he had a blast. And I love encouraging people to give it a shot. Like, because at the end of the day, no one really cares. Like, people aren't really paying attention for the most part. Unless they're paying to see your show, they don't really care. So just have fun and play around. And I've had the most fun when I'm working with another musician in some capacity. It's fun seeing people grow. And I know I'm not that great, but like using what little experience I have to help pull someone else up and encourage them is always great. And so go to open mics and meet other musicians and just jam with them. That will always make you a better musician, will make you a better performer, a guitar player, and just have more influences to pull from.
That's for sure. And good man
Yeah.
too. Thanks for helping that guy out there too. So
Yeah.
the Mike the questions here are pretty good. So yeah, let's jump into some fun ones. Ready?
Okay.
So start here with the first one here too. I'm curious if there's a particular UMass dish that we haven't heard about yet, but sorry, I forgot the college right there, but nonetheless. What would you say is currently your favorite food?
I mean, I always go back to a ribeye. I can't get away from it. I tried different things, and we have a lot of great food out here. We really do. Like, I had some bacon. I think was it bacon or goat cheese stuffed bacon wrapped dates at a place recently. They were incredible. But as far as favorite food, I can't get away from a simple ribeye steak, pan fried, a little crispy on the edges. Doesn't get much better than that.
I'd say my problem with ribeyes is it gets too chewy. I tend to not like that after a while.
Mm.
So
See, I always tenderize it pretty good so it's not too thick. I find like I like it when we have a little local grocery store here that has the marbling's not the best, but it's pretty affordable. So I really don't like when they do ribeyes that where it's super thick. Like, I don't, it's too much. It's more kind of around that thickness is usually perfect for me. It's a nice balance of tenderness and like a little crisp edge. But yeah, some ribeyes get to be too much. I sometimes like a New York sirloin is more my speed, but a good ribeye that's just the right thickness, just the right level of marbled. Oh, doesn't get much better than that.
I guess what do you like on the side? Because I also work in a restaurant too. We normally do like mashed potatoes and Brussels sprouts. Is there a particular side dish you like along with your ribeye?
Eggs. Yeah, it used to be eggs. You say a lot of steak and eggs, not as much eggs now. It's almost as much as the ribeye, but it's just. I mean, probably Brussels sprouts real good too, but I don't need anything with it. Just plain Jane, simple butter and salt, baby.
All right, fair enough. And for the next one right here, not sure how much of a TV nerd you are, but in this case, what would you say is your favorite movie If you have a favorite TV series you like, go ahead.
Favorite movie. I'm not a huge movie guy. I would, but one of my favorites of all time. I mean, maybe Gladiator as a classic. But I really do. I love V for Vendetta. That's one of my. That's got to be one of my favorite films of all time for sure. I've watched I've watched that movie many times, and it hits every time. Um, and what would you say the other one was? I'm sorry, the TV show. Top two. It's a tough pick. I'm a bit of an anime head here or there. One of my favorites of all time has got to be Attack on Titan, which is just a masterpiece. And then would maybe Breaking Bad, I would say. I'm again not a huge TV guy, but those two are just unbelievable. Uh, Edge of my seat the whole time. And Breaking Bad, I objectively think is a better show, but itself and Attack on Titan is fantastic as well. I'm always trying to show people those two shows.
I was actually reading the manga for Attack on Titan for a good while there too, and I don't know why I dropped off, to be honest.
Well, it's all done now. You can watch the whole thing all at once. And there's the other theatrical cuts of the final couple episodes. It's if you haven't, it's worth a watch. And it's almost there's some very slight tweaks from the anime to the manga, but it's pretty much a one-to-one storyline as far as the original versus the show. And from what I understand, the subs are ideal, but the dub is also very good if you hate reading subtitles. Yeah, it's great.
I do know that's always been a problem whenever it came to like dubbing and subbing, because unfortunately the dubs always move the mouse a little too much and just
Yeah,
that whole deal. So it makes for a
yeah.
very odd sort of look. So yeah. All right. We got your choices right there. And I'm not sure how much of a drinker you are, but I guess if you have a favorite alcoholic drink, feel free to share. And then what's your favorite non-alcoholic drink?
Um, there. I like a good scotch. Um, I really do like. I've been lately. Actually been into a lot of port. It's like it's a dessert wine. It's kind of it's fruity. It's delicious. It's chocolatey. And you don't need much to get a little tipsy. Like I've always been a fan of. I don't have to. I don't have to have so much volume. For me, a port is a nice in between because whiskey I can get a little too frazzled too quick, which I don't like. I'm very much like I want to get I want to ride that line of just being a little free, a little loose, but I hate being out of control. I never try to get there. Um, but port is a nice balance because it's not you you get a little loose pretty quick, but it's not so much that you can get away. It's harder to get away from you. Um, but yeah, I really like. I don't know if you have Knob Creek out there. Knob Creek's 9 year whiskey is a really good whiskey. It has a little bit of a maple sweetness to it, and Johnny Walker Black was always a good choice too. And then no, I mean I love coffee. I just drinking half calf right now. I like I like decaf. I like caffeinated. I love coffee. I used to be really into coffee, and I used to do the whole like pour over thing and very local beans. I'm not a prude on it anymore. I'll drink vending machine coffee, but I have an appreciation for really good coffee too.
I guess did you abuse the Starbucks and Dunkin' Donuts back in the day?
Not really. I don't like Dunkin's. It's terrible. Like yeah, I'll drink. I might like most vending machine coffee more than most Dunkin's because it's so inconsistent. It's often so watery. Their clientele don't want a lot of cream and sugar. I like my coffee pretty much black. Starbucks is fine. Like it's burnt. It's kind of a burnty taste, which people associate that with it being like strong, but it's just like a little over baked basically. But it's fine. It'll do. I try not to get coffee too much out if I can, but yeah, try to keep it simple. Try to drink it at home when I can, but I'll take what I can get.
And I mentioned about Knob Creek. First off, I'm pretty sure we do have it. I don't know which bars do. I don't know the restaurant I work at if we do have that. But actually, when you were talking about whiskey there too, I keep thinking of Whiskey Hangover, the song from Godsmack. I don't know if you heard about that song.
I haven't heard that one specifically, but I'll check it out later.
It's a little bit of a hard rock catch, but I always consider it like a funny song. But
That's all right. I do love. See, I do love like I love like kind of tongue in cheek sort of music, especially with like rock and punk. Like one of the things I love about the Offspring is their tongue is firmly planted in their cheek for 90% of their songs, and it's like I'm a silly goose at the end of the day. I like being silly. I don't take myself too seriously. So as much as I love the dramatic, I always enjoy when something that's often taken as serious as music is just very playful and silly, especially with something that's hard rock. I love the juxtaposition of like really gritty, heavy rock with something very silly. Um, so if that's kind of the energy that comes with that song, I'll definitely take a look.
All right, sounds good. And if our last fun question is, here's how I'll word it. So if you have a favorite song of all time, you can feel free to share. Otherwise, if that's too tough, name your top three bands. If you have some from like what you consider mainstream or independent community.
Okay. Um, I, I would have to put Frank Sinatra up there somewhere. It's a huge influence on me. It's a huge influence in a lot of my vocal delivery. It's a huge influence on in all the connected music of that era. But that is a foundational. It gets me every time. I just get lost in the sauce. I can listen to him any day of the week and all the different varieties, and I'll kind of put that in the bucket of vocal standards and stuff. I love all that. Um, top three. Um, at the same, I'm going to categorize this as like influence, as strongest influence in me, because it's hard to say. It changes what my favorite stuff is right now. James Taylor would be a number two, as far as I really tie it a lot with my mother in a lot of ways. Just there's a certain the warmth and connection that comes with that kind of music, that my connection to folk music and singer songwriting, and just this gentle ease that I just it's has a huge influence on me. And then, if it's tough, but I'll say the Bare Naked Ladies. Like I've listened to pretty much every song they've ever come out, and maybe like minus the post Steve Page era. I think after Steve Page left, they lost their edge. Like one of the things that I love about the Bare Naked Ladies is their songwriting, like their lyrics and their subjects of those things. There's a lot of nuance in their lyrics. There's a lot of just fringe emotions, fringe topics that are like very specific, but also universal in some way that they used to touch on when Steve was part of the band. And now it's just kind of easy breezy. There's not a lot of challenging lyrics going on, and that's fine. They've been touring for God knows how long, and they're all in their 60s now. So it's like I give them a pass. It's fine. They've done their work. But like "Break Your Heart" by Bernie is one of my favorite songs of all time. It's just a I don't know if you're familiar with the song, but it's a ballad, and it's about like basically it's about dating someone you didn't really like that much, but it's done in this kind of loving way, that isn't often you get the perspective of the person who was the datee when the other person wasn't very interested, but you don't often get the perspective of someone who, because of lack of standing up for themselves or lack of what's I'm looking for, and it resonates with me specifically, um, leaning so much on a people pleasing tendency, they weren't able to advocate for themselves enough to say, well, I don't actually care about this person enough to say no, and just how I don't know, it's a little tongue in cheek, but just they have a lot of songs like that where it's just touches on stuff that I don't really hear mentioned very much, and it's very true to life. So I would say Frank Sinatra, James Taylor, and the Bare Naked Ladies, if I had to pick three for now.
That's my dad about the whole thing of the Bare Naked Ladies, because I'm pretty sure he has like a couple of their songs, maybe just because he gets it from like iTunes, that sort of stuff. But
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure I have heard that song at some point. But
yeah, it's one to me. It's one of Steve's best songs. There's a crescendo where he vocally breaks very intentionally, but it's just so well done. Like It's worth a listen. They got a lot of kind of gut wrenching soft songs that are in there, but that's got to be one of my favorites of all time. And any opportunity, I that I can play it. Like I had the opportunity to have a Bare Naked Ladies fan at one of my gigs, and I was just like, "Oh, you want some deep cuts?" I was so excited to be able to play that song and a couple others for someone who like really appreciated how close I am to like the spirit of that song. So it's always nice to have someone who can appreciate what you're doing. So
That's for sure. But great choices there nonetheless.
cool.
So, Mike, we're down to one more question on my podcast right here, but I guess before we jump into it, would you like to ask me anything? Any questions?
Yeah, how long have you been a drummer? Like just kind of basic stuff. I know. As have you always wanted? As you had the drumming bug since you were like a kid, or where? How deep does that run? How deep does that vein run for you?
Well, I would say there was always a drawing bug at some points because I'm sure we have always done something with a pencil or pen and something like that. But it officially didn't take off until sometime in, let's see, I'm going to say late high school. So
Okay.
it started more with a rock band, the video
Mhm.
game, that whole deal.
Yeah.
And then that's how it pretty much started right there. And then when my parents realized this wasn't really a fad, it wasn't just going to blow over, they asked if I wanted my own drum set. So
Yeah.
they weren't going to stick with the acoustic one because it doesn't really work well in this house right here.
Yeah.
So they found the electric set. It started off with just like a simple starter's kit, as I would say. I forget. It was
Yeah.
definitely a Roland brand. I forget what it was actually, but eventually upgraded to a Roland TD25K, and now I got a VAD 706 tucked over in the corner there. So there was that. I did strings for a good while. I was more of a cello player.
Oh,
Yeah.
really? Interesting. Did you
Not
have
much.
did you have like a formal like did you have like orchestra sort of in high school, or like was that something that was available to you? If you're, I mean, string instruments are, I would say the biggest issue people run into is accessibility. I feel like it's just there's not a lot of venues, a lot, music programs being cut and everything is just not as common anymore.
Well, it was for school, so it was from elementary to high school. So yeah, we did our orchestra and at times a little ensemble. So
Oh, cool.
even went to Disney. So that was what
That's
really.
cool to see that around still. I was homeschooled kind of growing up and for a while, and then went to kind of a folk school, and I just had small schools, so there wasn't a lot of the infrastructure that would provide that. But it is cool to see that still kicking around. So,
That's for
and you
sure.
you've been in several bands, or you had a high school band, you said, right? You were for a little bit, or was it just rock band?
It was just rock band. I never got
Oh,
into
okay.
like doing like the 4-piece band or what you see with like 3-piece or anything like that. So it was definitely like that. It was just strictly more of orchestra, ensemble, that sort of deal, and then just doing rock band outside of that, and then just really goofing around doing drums. And then when COVID had hit, I started doing drum covers to start my YouTube channel. That's
Yeah.
also how I jumped into this podcast here too. So if
Yeah.
that was one of your questions, that also COVID helped with the drumming and doing drum covers, and then also doing the podcast. So
On that same venue, like what, I'm not familiar with drummers, like because that's not something that I've focused on. Is there a specific drummer influence that you're like, this is my idol? Like, I uh, I look up to this person, or they were like a big influence on it, or is it just more like you like gravitated towards the drums and you kind of played around and just experimented with different stuff?
well, there's definitely the classic rock stuff, the Alex Van Halen's. So let's see. I think so. I know obviously they would tell you Rush because of the Professor, Neil Peart, all that stuff. Yeah, John Bonham, Bill Ward, who could definitely be in the list there too. So some of the classic rock ones. And then when I started really getting more into the metal, I think I was kind of going through what they would call like a deathcore phase, which
Uh-huh.
I can't name you any drummers from the group, but I know like Chelsea Grin was definitely like one of those groups. Maybe a little
Yeah.
Carn Effects at times, but when I started getting into more called dark side in this case.
Yeah.
It got more into like the bands that came out like the late '80s and '90s right there. So like Pete Sandoval of Morbid Angel and then George Corlius of Nile were big influences.
Okay. Cool.
Obviously, I can't really play anything that they do, but I have fun doing it. So
Yeah, no, you do your best. What's your of those covers that you've put up? What's your favorite one that you've done so far?
that's tough because I think my biggest accomplishment one and the longest one I've done so far was Death Angels, The Ultra Violence.
Okay.
So it's an instrumental, but it's a 10-minute song. So,
Jeez.
so
That's an endurance. Yeah, it always, you know, musicians, as they get older, we have things that we run into as far as like staying in shape. But one thing that's nice about the drums is you're moving, man. You're, especially if you're into any kind of metal, there's a reason that most of them are like lanky and tall and like you're burning, you're moving, man. And kudos. Like it's always very impressive to me. Honestly, rhythm is something that I have to improve on myself. I have the tendency, because it's just me and there's no one else to like make me realize I'm a little fast or a little slow. Um, I should really be practicing more with like a metronome at times, just to kind of get that internal system going. But yeah, drums are always very impressive to me, knowing how hard enough if I have a time just using two hands, never mind using my feet at the same time. So
double bass and then doing blast beating, that sort of stuff. So yeah, I
yeah.
understand why.
Is there one that you're a specific song that you're kind of looking forward to, as far as that you're like, I'm going to build up to this and one day I want to like really hit?
It was actually funny because recently I was trying to do Dark Angels, Death is Certain, Life is Not. And the thing that's hard about that one is the bass. It's a different sort of pattern whenever it gets like to each verse, and it kind of changes up every now and again. So that one, it took a lot of like studying to like get it down,
Yeah.
for instance, and a couple tries to say the least. But I got it.
Yeah.
So there was that one, and I think one for like the future one, I think it had to be Morbid Angels, Immortal Rights. I think I want that one. I'm gonna study and get that one down so I can do it for my Halloween drum covers, as I like to do recently.
Yeah.
So, or at least what they would consider like Halloween themed, because they get
Okay.
like dark at times. So,
Yeah. Is there, let's see, musically, I mean, I feel like a lot of people these days are kind of all over the place musically, what they enjoy. Is there an artist that's ever like surprised you how much you enjoy them? Like it's not your typical bag, but like for whatever reason they resonate with you.
that's tough because as much as I respect it, I tend not to get into rap or the hip hop because I normally consider it. We go to the club, that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
don't enjoy that sort of stuff. My dad, he really introduced me more into the classic rock, and then I should say he kind of also got me into metal, so it's kind of his fault because he was also a big fan of Metallica.
Yeah.
So maybe not a big fan, but he at least respected their music and would listen to them compared to like some of the other '80s music that came out.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit tough because I'm always finding my way into like some sort of like metal or rock every now and again
Yeah.
whenever we're doing like long play rides or long car rides, for instance. So
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't know if I can answer it. So I think
That's
it's
okay. I mean, yeah, sometimes you don't have a good answer, and and that's a good enough. Like, I totally respect, as someone who also just kind of knows what they're about, and I have no problems with it. Like, you know what you're about musically, and there's nothing wrong with that either. If you have more narrow things that you enjoy musically, rock on, man. Like, you like what you like, and some people I'm all over the place, but that's kind of my brain. But if some people have really love to hone in on certain things, so it'd
I
be
think
what
I
it'd
would
be.
say Linkin Park till he's answered the question. So
Okay. Okay, that makes sense. That I feel like that bridges some gaps for you as far as your musical preferences. Yeah, no, they're great. They got a mixed bag.
there
But
was that, and then I think even now with like the new singer, the new female vocalist, and unfortunately I think she's taking a lot of heat, but I think she's still pretty damn good to say the least. But
yeah,
she's still got it. But I think they had to like change their band name now, so people wouldn't like consider it like controversy to say the least.
yeah, it's tough. It's really tough when you have an iconic band established to have a new singer, especially he had such a distinct. It's like losing Freddie Mercury. Like, I know it's not the same level, but just a very distinct energy and style. That it's at that point it's a different band. Um, but it, you figure it out.
Eventually. So
Yeah.
all right, anything else?
I think that's it. I appreciate you taking the time to chat. Was surprised, and always like talking shop. So I appreciate it, man.
No worries.
It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too, Meg. So, but we do have one more question, and here's how it goes. So, given a lot of the negativity that's been kind of going on in the world here recently, whether it was because of the political, COVID, or even like stuff going on that's really out of our control right here too.
Mhm.
Obviously, it seemed you were pretty blessed. You weren't really impacted by like COVID or anything else like that there too. But for those musicians and people who are perhaps going through a rough time in their lives, whether dealing with addiction, that sort of stuff, what's their message of hope? Could you get to those people so they can try and move forward with their lives?
Hmm. It's admittedly it's tough with the world. The world being what it is. It's just to keep your head up and keep your eyes on the swivel for there are good people out there, and don't be okay. Here's what I would say: don't be afraid to cut toxic people out of your life. Would be probably my shortest answer, because it is incredible how that will improve your life. If you've got and it's hard and it's scary. Okay, and to parallel with that would be to don't let you can change who you want to be at any point in time. Don't let previous behavior and the persona your friends know you by limit your growth. Um, you have the tendency as a person, not you specifically, the universal you, has the tendency to mold yourself into what your friends have expected of you in the past. But there's no reason why that has to stay stagnant. At any point, you can decide you want to have a change, you want to have a different personality. Like you can change at any point, and it's pretty cool. It's strange, but yeah, don't be afraid to mix it up and shed extra baggage, and keep your head up. There's good people out there. It's hard to see sometimes, but try to focus on the individual as opposed to when talking about people and thinking about how screwed up the world is. Just focus on the individual people you meet that are pretty cool, because I think it's George Carlin space out of something like people are stupid and individuals are really cool. People are crazy.
Something along those lines. So yeah.
Yeah, something like that.
Hey, I spoke like a true prodigy. So, yeah. So Mike, we reached the end of my podcast right here. We talked about an hour and 37 minutes, but I guess before we close out, would you like to say any final words? Give any shout outs to anybody?
Just thanks, Mom, I guess, for imbuing me with a really cool voice and a love for music. And I would say I have a show today, but no one's gonna see that. But if you're looking for mass singers, you can find me at Michael K Music on Facebook. That's KAE, Michael K, and then that on Instagram as well. I'm always looking to collaborate or just jam out and stuff too. So if you happen to be around and you're familiar with the area, or follow me or shoot me a DM there if you want to collaborate, if you happen to see this and you're in the area. So
Hey, and I know you mentioned on social media, but just for the audience, can you list all the social media that you are on so they can check you out and interact?
yeah, so it's Michael K Music on Instagram, Facebook, and on YouTube. It's all the same search terms. So that's Michael KAE Music.
All right, sounds good. And to close out like this, everyone, I guess it was Michael K, or if we want to say the full name, it's Michael Kaitbenski. Hopefully I said it right. All right. I'm trying to get there. It's hard with the Polish names, okay?
Yeah, I get you.
Okay. So nonetheless, let's go help our brother out there too. He's part of his own little project right here, Michael K Music. So let's go support our brother out there. He's up there in Massachusetts. So we'll go hit him on all socials. And are you on any streaming or anything yet, or have you not gotten to that point yet to put on Spotify?
I haven't quite gotten there yet. No Twitch or YouTube lives or anything like that. Maybe at some point in the future, but not at this point.
So at the moment, we'll just support him on the socials.
For now,
so.
yeah.
All right. Nonetheless, Michael, God bless you, man, and stay safe out there, because it is pretty fucked up out there. So stay safe. Rock on.
Rock on, brother.
And stay tuned, y'all.
See you, man.